Go green.
Go green, yeah. What does it mean to go green?
Not to throw rubbish around and not to leave rubbish in the classroom. Bottles, use.
So reuse your bottles. Maybe have, like, instead of plastic bottles, use some sort of a metal bottle or something like that that's reusable. Okay. And I like that you brought up the classroom because you can use the classroom like a microcosm of the outside world. You keep your classroom clean like you keep the outside world clean. So you can use that to teach especially young kids that whatever they do in the classroom is the same sort of behavior they should exhibit on the outside. You don't throw trash on the floor in the classroom. You don't spit on the floor in the classroom. You should not do that outside as well. So environmental literacy would also be looking at new energy sources and whether or not they're effective. So again, that depends on what year you're teaching. So these are some of the set subjects. There are more. You thought we were done. These new students, man, they really have their work cut out for them. So these are actual skills that they are going to have to possess by the time they graduate from secondary school, ideally. So the first one, creativity and innovation. So a lot of times the arguments are that when we focus too much on testing, we kill creativity because they have to learn with a specific frame in mind because there's a specific outcome. But when we allow them to learn in different ways, even slightly more creative ways, it allows them to continue to develop the creativity and innovation, and they get the same information. Not only do they get the same information, but they actually internalize the same information. So that when you're testing them maybe 2 years later, they have a better chance at remembering it than if they had memorized it using rote memorization, that technique where you just remember it for a short period of time. When you're actually creatively using the information, you're internalizing that information and you'll be able to produce it again. Critical thinking and problem solving, another one that goes back. I mean, in many ways, I see these as that like recycle arrow thing where they're all interconnected. Because when you're doing problem solving, you use your creativity. In order to be a good problem solver, you have to have creativity and innovation. Because you have to take a problem and go, ooh, what's that? How am I going to alter whatever is present so that I can change that or I can fix that problem? How am I going to do that? So those are like the foundational steps to problem solving. And then finally, communication and collaboration. And I've said this before to you guys, but one of the things that I've been noticing when I look outside at where students have to be in the future is they have to be able to accurately and adequately communicate information. And that means like getting it down in one email only. Getting everything that needs to be said done at one time instead of having other people constantly have to ask questions. Well, what did you mean? What did you say? I don't understand. What is this? What is that? What is this? And also collaboration in terms of being able to use small groups and work together soundly within those small groups and productively. So those are some of the actual skills. The other skills, are you ready for them? It's another big list. So they have to have information literacy. What do you think that means, information literacy?
To know where to look for.
Yeah, sure.
To have the right access and digest your material.
Okay, great. So to know where, to also have access and know how to use the opportunity.
And how to ask questions.
How to ask questions. Good, absolutely. and how to judge the information, right? Because we don't want our students looking at Wikipedia and going, wow, that's fabulous, this is all correct, because it's not.
Some
So,
are gullible.
yeah, sometime. I mean, parts of it are correct, but you wouldn't use that for an academic paper. It would be inappropriate because it's not refereed information. Experts aren't going back over the Wikipedia most of the time and going like, yes, that is correct. No, that is wrong. Yes, that is correct. Occasionally they visit the pages. So, yes, that would be for information literacy. How about media literacy?
To know journals.
Okay, knowing journals and where to find them online. What else?
Even in the library.
Even in the library, yeah, that's true. Although now all the libraries are online too. What else?
Have their own opinion about what they hear and what they see, and not to be conveyed what is said.
Okay, absolutely. And I think that would be for both, right? So media literacy would be, so from my understanding of what you said is like if they're watching the news or they're reading a newspaper, they have to be able to think critically about that source of information and maybe even recognize where they can get an alternate source of information. For example, with my students, I always do newspaper readings where they have to choose something from the BBC or New York Times or CNN and compare it with something like Al Jazeera, because Al Jazeera has a very different spin oftentimes on the news. And so then they have to look at those and then make their own opinion. So absolutely, that is media literacy. That's part of it. Also, what else would be media literacy?
They should be able to impress themselves through media sources. So they should be able to start communicating through media and maybe to be some kind of journalist or something else. So to report some events like recently we have Sandy, the storm, and a lot of people are performing this Sandy storm through media. So we can all probably, yes, become journalists.
Sure, why not? I remember when I was in I think it was August 15, there were some attacks in Afghanistan, in Kabul, and the BBC was asking us to send live footage from Kabul to be that kind of a journalist, be like a citizen journalist. That's what they call it, a citizen journalist. So that's another form of media literacy, absolutely, practicing their own ability to communicate using media.
Can we say here that democracy based a lot upon information? So if you really have information, maybe you're more free to democracy.
Sure. I mean, I would say yes, absolutely. Other people may argue, but I agree.
For me, it's media literacy.
I agree. I support that. And then finally, information communications and technology literacy. So that's basically like we have computers. Another TED lecture that I was watching this weekend that was amazing is this guy. He's from India, and he's created a physical computer. And so he just has like a little video recorder, a sort of recorder right here, and he can project onto a blank piece of paper, like he can create his own iPad on a blank piece of paper, and he presses the buttons in the places where he wants, and the computer generates it. And it's literally just like a little thing that hangs right here. He can walk down the street, and if he wants to snap a picture, he goes like that or like that. The computer will take the picture. And then later, he can stand next to a wall like this. It's like the equivalent of having this projector on your person. And you can either project everything and sort through it, or you can use it to like show movies, you could use it to show slideshows, you could use it to do anything. So it's really interesting. And that means there's a lot of things that are going to happen that are going to change. And that we have to stay aware of them, and we have to train students to understand why it's important to stay aware of them, all the changes as well, even though sometimes the changes are scary. You know, I think about that and I'm like, oh my gosh, now I have more things I'm going to have to learn, but he made it look so easy. I really recommend, maybe this weekend if you have some free time, do Google TED and see if you can find information like, I think it's called Human Computer. So the first one was about the university, and I think the second one, I do not remember his name and I apologize for that, but I'm pretty sure that it was Human Computer. It's fascinating. And if you have a hard time with the accent, just turn the subtitles on. They do have subtitles in English. So this is for just media and technology skills. Then finally we come to life and career skills. Finally, we're here. So all of that leads to flexibility and adaptability. And I think one of the things that's nice about using group work in classrooms is that it's a very easy way to add to flexibility, or at least practice flexibility and adaptability, because when students are engaged actively with each other, they have to learn to get along, because they have a common goal that they must achieve. There's a task that they're required to do by the end of whatever it is that you're having them do. And they learn flexibility and adaptability through those experiences. Initiative and self-direction, this one is often very hard because that goes hand in hand with motivation, right? And we know that students aren't always the most motivated. So it's trying to find ways to talk with them and share with them that encourages their own inner dialogue and motivation. Social and cross-cultural skills, those are something that they're going to also need to be aware of. Productivity and accountability. Do y'all remember what I said accountability was from the last time we talked about wholehearted learning? Anybody remember? It did sort of have something to do with assessment, that's right. But accountability is just making sure that people are responsible for keeping their word. So
personal responsibility.
Yeah, it's responsibility. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. And it's the same thing. So when we talked about it in the context of, if you want, there's some chairs here. Okay, there's one there. We talked about it in the context of teacher accountability, right? In terms of when we say that we're going to do something, we have to do it. Otherwise, we lose respect from the students. And also, we talked about it from the context of student accountability, where when we say something is due, we have to hold the students to the due date. We also have to, I don't want to use the word confront, because that has a very aggressive meaning and implication. But I think that we want to address nicely what's going on with the student and why they're not being accountable in the classroom. Because in order for our community, we talked about the classroom being a community last time, in order for our community of learners to grow and progress together and get the work we need to get done, we all have to be accountable. It's an agreement that we have with each other. So learning this helps them amazingly once they move into university and they aren't as guided by teachers anymore, but also when they get into the real world, right? Because your boss is going to expect that you do it and hold you accountable. If you don't do it, there are going to be problems. Okay, so leadership and responsibility, I think those are pretty given, yeah? What do you think they mean? Does it mean that we have to teach all of the students to be, you know, in front of the class, like, so next we're going to do this activity, and then we're going to do this and this? Is that what a leader is?
Leader has
To be ready for a
inspire.
change.
Okay, so leaders, I hear they have to inspire, they have to be ready for change. Tell me more. I'm liking it.
To make students interested.
Okay, now you're putting yourself as the leader. What about students as the leader?
To ask proper questions.
Okay. So what I hear you saying when you start saying to ask proper questions is leaders are aware of how they are being when they are with other people. So true leadership is not just standing in the front giving directions and, you know, just moving everybody along. That's a part of it. But true leadership is actually sitting down, listening, hearing what is said and what is not said, and how that will impact the group that you are leading. That's what leadership is. And that's what we don't always teach, and that's what we need to, is like really being aware of the community and of the impact that you have on that community is. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I mean by what's being said and what's not being said and the impact it has on a group? Because oftentimes we say one thing but we mean another. So recognizing what the other thing that's not being explicitly stated but is implied in the statements are, that's very powerful. And that can help us to be a better leader because we recognize maybe when they say that they're expressing anger, resentment, hurt, or maybe they just don't even know how to contextualize what they are saying. And it's coming out in a jumble of words, but what they really mean is X, Y, and Z. So leaders will take that information, process it, and say, do you mean? And then they will be able to clarify it and continue to move forward. Okay. Questions? Comments, concerns, criticism? Anything? We're almost done with the skills. Are you already overwhelmed? Because when I first saw this, I was like, are you kidding? How do we even have time to teach all of these skills? We've already been talking about them now for 45 minutes, just talking about the skills. It's not even like putting it into the context of it. So, yes. So,
Maybe in our community, some leaders, they don't keep their words, so they're not thinking that they're real leaders. So they should be responsible for their actions and their promises. So people are listening to them and receiving no results.
well, that's interesting too because it's a great opportunity for you to teach students how to really listen by not listening to words. Like listening to actions, listening to, so they're saying one thing, but are they really meaning another? So thinking critically about, so they say this, what do you believe the outcome is going to be? That's a really good, that's a good point. It's actually, it's a great tool.
Because leader
To teach about
can
leadership.
promise a lot,
Yeah,
but just be talkative.
yeah,
Some like
exactly.
many of them.
Exactly. So, I mean, what I would probably do, the way I might teach it, is I might have a series of discussions on leaders and show what they said they would do, what they did, and then have the students maybe analyze that. I don't know. There's plenty of ways to do this, and there's plenty of actual lesson plans that are all pre-done for you, so that you could find a way to do that. But to continue with what my little vein of conversation for this is